To order. Thanks everybody for being here in fashion. First item on the agenda is to take a look at the March 7th minutes. Any additions, suggestions, deletions, or corrections? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? There we go. Legislative priorities, next item on the agenda. So, the reason this is on the agenda now is because we have to have these submitted by the end of July, first week of August at the absolute latest. So I'm open to suggestions. I have a couple ideas where to go with our priorities. I would say that less is more. 3 is a good number. 5 has been a little bit over the top in the past. We've had as many as 5, and it's almost hard to have the conversation with legislators when you're sitting with them. But the floor is open to suggestions.
So what they are?
I mean, I've got some notes down from.
Yeah, I think that we talked about continue the no unfunded mandates.
Yeah, that's one that I have on the list. I'd say we continue with the mantra of timely and adequate funding as well. Director DeLoach, I got a couple of those, but. I'd like to suggest that we do pre-K funding.
Yeah, that's what I was literally thinking about was preschool, and there were some stipulations that we didn't get passed with pre-K funding. I can't remember what they were.
I mean, I just think that coming on the heels of them getting rid of the 3rd grade retention, that it might be good to push for a proactive thing instead of a punitive thing, especially because it was an unfunded mandate. Be nice to get consistent pre-K support. 4-year-old. I don't think we push for 3-year-old yet. Save extension?
Yeah, definitely save. That would have been nice this year.
Uh-huh. Those are, I mean, certainly 4 that I think it would be hard to argue against if we did go with 4. There's some others that I keep picking on. One is that crazy PAB thing that I've brought up a couple times about Property Assessment Appeals Board. County assessors, and in particular, they when your property gets assessed, and this is ideally set up for residential property, you can appeal at no cost. You can appeal to a board that then reviews your assessment and determines whether or not that assessment is fair. Problem is that corporate entities, large corporate entities, appeal everything. Hy-Vee's, Walmart, Target, that type of stuff. And there are groups that come in and appeal everything, and a lot of assessors, including our own, is good at fighting them. But across the state, there's a lot of assessors from either smaller municipalities or less adept assessors at the county level that they don't take anything to court. And so school funding in municipalities outside of ours are losing out on millions of taxable revenue. Literally millions. For instance, Coral Ridge Mall was assessed at $150 million, and they said, no, we think it's worth about 105. That's $45 million of assessed value. That's taxable property. So just tonight, but I don't think that resonates very well with people. It's too complicated.
So I knew it was something about preschool. So I know some other folks on some other school boards, and some of the discussion has been about the cost of preschool and how some places it's not enough to really cover the real cost of that.
Okay.
So, I don't know, maybe it can be included, increase.
They're probably looking at it from the standpoint of it's tough to offer pre-K without wraparound, and they're not funding the wraparound, and I would imagine that's probably what they're,
Yeah, but I think like some places won't even take.
oh,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the what is it, SVPP or whatever?
yeah, the statewide voluntary preschool
Yeah.
program,
Because
SWVPP.
the rate is low, especially like in our community.
Mm-hmm,
So I think that, you know, we have that huge number of kids that don't get preschool every year. And I
Right.
wonder, some of it is about space and availability, right, that we are able to offer. If that was a little higher, would more folks take that funding and allow kids to have more access to
Space,
preschool?
transportation, and then like Steve said, the wraparound.
Yeah.
So we get the 0.5 funding for them right now.
Yeah,
And the requirement with that 0.5 funding is that we offer, I can't remember if it's 10 or 12 hours. It's not even that many hours a week.
mhm,
You know, and so when you talk about being able to make a substantial impact, not only are we not reaching all the kids, we don't have them for that many hours
Mhm.
even.
And some of the issue that has happened with our own preschool is the transportation issue. So how do I get my kid there if the preschool in my neighborhood is full?
Or in a more rural district,
Yeah,
right?
or you live further out or whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's
Mhm.
so, and because it's half day, you know, finding someone in the middle of the day that can come pick your kid up and take them to the other daycare center or whatever, I think.
Mhm.
I mean, I just think it could be nice to be added, but I mean, to the preschool request.
Right, so do you feel comfortable, like, kind of putting that into some type of a one sentence, like, bullet point and bounce it over to me? Is that cool?
No, yeah, it's not that difficult. I mean,
Right,
this is very similar to the Des Moines one, because I was talking to Des Moines. So they
Cool.
are talking about the increase in the weighted funding in the statewide voluntary
Mhm.
preschool for children living in poverty. Children living or below 200% federal poverty level,
cool.
allowing flexible spending to enhance the ability to meet diverse and unique needs.
Okay.
So it's not, you know, I just was talking to someone who's also a school board member there about why that was important, and then talking to preschool folks here, knowing that some places won't take it because they are like, well, the cost for that preschool is this much, but we
Right.
charge this much. And even some of the statewide, I think we even have a program here that will only take kids 4 days a week instead of 5. And that the funding only covers 4 of those days, and then parents would have to come up with the other amount of money to cover that, which I don't know why we contract with them. That seems weird.
Mhm.
How we do that? I think that's a different discussion, but seriously, why do we do that? I'm just saying everybody else is not paying for preschool, and then the families that end up in a situation where they have to choose that one, and they end up having to come out of pocket for preschool. So it's kind of an equity issue.
Well, do you want to just
Sure.
copy paste the Des Moines one to me? I mean,
Sure, I can
because,
do that.
I mean,
I mean, I just pulled up.
place
right
to
here.
start?
at the end of the day, you know, our ledge priorities are ours, but I think it would be nice to be somewhat uniform with some of our other UEN districts.
Yeah.
So that's a good place to start.
So Steve, one of the things they talked about, and the one Natasha said, and then also the one with ELL, was the flexibility of spending. I know some of that's changed somewhat, so.
Yeah, there's, and there actually, we just got an update on that in terms of what it looks like, in terms of how much flexibility we have, both in spending it and then in the retention and rollover piece of it. And there's some procedural things in there about as you begin to accrue balances in there, then you can take action at the end of the year and you can move those into a flexible spending account that you have inside your district. I can't remember what the title of it is. There's not, for us as a district, I don't think there's going to be a lot of money in there from that standpoint. But there may be opportunities for us each June 30th to take a look at that.
If I remember it right, we have to wait a year for that to come into play.
Yeah, you either had to have a balance in place with action taken by June 30th this year, or it'll be June 30th of next year.
Because, well, the three that, the Des Moines had was preschool, SAVE, and ELL support.
Not timely and adequate. ELL support, huh?
They wanted, if I remember right, they wanted to extend the 5 to 7 years, the support.
So I would, if we want to consider something like that, I would suggest that we get rid of the unfunded mandates, want to keep it to no more than 4. Especially since we just scored a kind of a win on 2 unfunded mandates, right?
Which I'm fine with.
Yeah. So tell me, it's going from 5 to 7?
I'd have to go back and look at what it said.
ELL is 5 to 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that the eligibility actually conforms to best practice in ELL instruction.
Okay.
So that's something that we pushed informally for 7 years at least.
Did it used to be 3? I mean, they.
Yeah,
bumped
it
one
did
time.
get bumped. It bumped up to 5, and when we got them to consider bumping it up, we wanted them to push it all the way to 7. They only took it to 5, and it was a funding issue. They weren't sure about their ability to fund it all the way to 7.
And we could certainly make the case, considering our ELL has gone up, what, 300% in 4 years?
200% 5.
At least, or Laura and I.
200%,
were just
More
looking
than
at-
that.
Yeah,
And that was also one of the, you just said that, sorry.
yeah.
It's more
Laura
than
and I
that,
were just
isn't it?
looking
That's
at our shared
300%.
numbers.
Might be.
and
I
think
know it
we're
was
fourth in the
200%.
state for
Actually,
total
200%
number
of
of
4.
ELLs.
Mhm.
Off the look.
Okay.
Did you hear that?
Sorry, say that again?
Laura and I were just looking at our shared number compared to the rest of the districts in the
Uh-huh.
state, and I think we're 4th on the list overall with the number
Really?
of ELLs, over 1,400.
Yeah.
Now, there's a DE statistic graph that we grabbed today, because we're sitting in ELL training, and so it was interesting. I think we saw about 28,000 students statewide, and we've got 1,400 of them here.
Wow.
28,000 statewide, 1,400 here.
Just a comparison, though, the number 1 district would be Des Moines with 6,800.
Yes.
Dropped off fast after that. I think the next one's around 2,800, and then maybe, I don't know what is between that and us, but I think we're 4th.
Okay. Okay, well, that's certainly one that's worthy of consideration too.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that's 5. I mean, if we leave unfunded mandates in there, technically there's 5. We could just
Just take that one out.
take that one out, so just leave it at 4 and come back to the board with, we can get some type of,
So say them again, just so.
so timely and adequate funding,
Yeah.
save extension, pre-K, whatever you're gonna send me. Funding, transportation, all that inequity in pre-K, and then ELL. I think those are all great. I think they'll resonate.
And the first 2, talking to our legislators, is gonna be so much rocket science, right? Because it's the same ones we had last year. These ones might be some energy put into the last 2,
Yeah.
just explaining to them that.
With SAVE, I'd stress that we need the whole penny and we need it used for what it's
Well,
supposed to
yeah.
be used for,
Yeah.
as opposed to having an arms race with other school districts, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. Ready to move on? I think that's a good place to start there. I think I have full confidence that we can get that done by the end of July. This is further
Okay.
than we usually are. Acceptable use policy. Adam, do you mind if I turn that over to you, sir?
No problem at all. So this is a draft policy that is applied to both students and district staff, actually all users of district network resources. Just a quick overview of the contents of it. It includes information relating to district ownership of the network and what the network includes. By network resources refers to our data networks, our devices, computers, tablets, refers to district services that are provided, those sorts of things. There is a section relating to expectation of privacy, specifically no expectation of privacy as a public entity. Almost everything that we have in terms of electronic records are viewable through Freedom of Information Act requests, obviously with the exceptions of those things specifically excluded by law, such as student records, that sort of thing. But should not be an expectation of confidentiality when things are sent over the network. That's included. Users' responsibility, broadly speaking, for things like reporting damage. Staff should report damage, students should report damage, as noted there, along with whom they should report that damage to. Network security and safety. There's a section that relates to basic guidelines for network security and safety, things like don't reveal your full name, address, location to unknown parties, inform building or district administrators. This would apply to both staff and students of online communication that's threatening, harassing, otherwise inappropriate, information related to proper use of passwords, that sort of thing, not leaving accounts open. Acceptable uses of technology are listed again broadly. One of the goals with this document and the way we developed it is really to avoid laundry lists of specific things that one can or cannot do, particularly specific lists of things that one can do. We want this to be as open as possible. But we want to make sure that users are aware of both operational limitations in terms of what users should expect to be able to do on the network in terms of, we may need to filter things related to network performance, let's say, but also related to use of services that have costs involved, excuse me, responsibility for content of text, that sort of thing. And then that breaks down into specific network resources, including the internet, email, computers, laptops, tablets, other similar devices, cell phones, smartphones, and other handheld devices. And as Paul had asked about, I posted a list in board docs of all of the secondary school cell phone policies, with the exception of Liberty, where that is still under development. And this policy really refers to those. And then unacceptable uses of technology, things related to copyright, improper language, defamatory statements, pornographic, obscene, profane, illegal, things that are covered under SIPA that we are required by federal law to filter and otherwise prohibit. Bullying, harassment, activities that violate law, operating a personal business using district network resources for financial gain, things like that. Harassment and bullying, violations and sanctions. So if someone violates any part of this policy, how that's handled, largely that's handled through the district's student behavior and discipline policies, rather than trying to articulate a whole set of criteria here within this document. And then finally, reliability, basically a statement that the district cannot make warranties of any kind for the service it's providing. That's an overview of the document. Obviously, it goes into much greater detail. Some of this language over the years has been recommended by attorneys who are reviewing it. For instance, the expectation of reliability of network resources. But for the most part, my goal with development of this document is to make sure that users have a fairly readable, and try to make this as readable as possible, but a fairly readable resource that helps them understand what the expectations are, both of them and of the data that they put on our network, whether that's our network directly or any other network services that the district provides.
So I want to thank you for adding the cell phone building policies, because one of my questions was when I came across 4A and it says, in accordance with each building's policy, I did not know what those were, so thank you for adding those.
Yep. And I don't know if you've had a chance to look through those. They are very similar
Yeah.
for the most part.
I thought the high schools were pretty similar. I guess when they get down into the junior high, there's some ones that,
A little more flexibility in some than others.
yeah, which I don't mind, like, the Southeast one has infraction protocol, and some of the other ones don't, or, I personally would just like to see them a little bit more uniform.
Yeah, from building to building.
Because there's plenty of kids that will do 7th grade at one school.
Sure.
6th grade at
Or move in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
I do have a comment about
yes.
the 2A, use of objectionable language is prohibited in email, and unacceptable uses of technology. D, using confrontational, improper language. I mean, I certainly understand the pornographic, illegal, offensive, so on and so forth, but knowing full well that this is open and everything is viewable by anyone considering it's a public network, right? I guess I just have concerns about the wording, objectionable language or confrontational or improper language, to who? Who's deciding? And I mean, I know that when you look at, a student's First Amendment rights don't necessarily stop at the door, according to Tinker v. Des Moines, right?
Nope.
So certainly things that are illegal, you don't want that, but who's to judge improper language?
One thing I would say about those both unacceptable uses D and then 2A under rules applicable to specific network resources. Both of those could be viewed as redundant. We already have behavior policies, more generally speaking, that are not technology specific.
Right.
And this document specifically says that those apply to all technology, electronic communications, that sort of thing. So I wouldn't have a huge objection to taking them out. Those were added, I think 2A was added because that's referenced in our digital citizenship curriculum somewhere. I'd have to look into more detail into that. And then unacceptable uses D. Really relates to bullying. I mean, to me, that's probably a redundant
Sure. So
component. So.
something that is deemed to be bullying, yeah, I get that, but
Yeah.
like improper language.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the first
That
one more
grammar.
than the, and again, you can also talk about whether there should be specific wording there to differentiate between staff and students.
Right.
For instance,
Right.
If a student makes a defamatory statement about another student, to me, that's probably bullying. Depending upon how you define defamatory and improper, a statement by a staff member or a student actually could probably be read either
way, yeah.
I guess my position would be that probably neither of those are necessary. They're not specific to this policy. The more severe versions where I think what you're getting at where there's actually something illegal or there's bullying going on or something along those lines are already addressed through other district
Yeah.
policies.
I'm also reasonably certain that if we bring the AUP to the board with that language, that's going to be a discussion at the board table as well. So just trying to anticipate that.
Certainly.
And not,
support that.
and right, I think perhaps justified discussion. So
Mhm.
but rather than get bogged down in that, it might be better just to be preemptive. Does this allow you, as tech guy and you, Steve, overseeing the rollout of one-to-one, does this allow you to do what you need to do as far as managing this in a safe way for our students and teachers that are, on our network with our devices?
I believe it does. And usually with this kind of policy, I tend to believe less is more. In this case, under the violations and sanctions policy, it does specifically say sufficiently severe violations may result in, for instance, permanent loss of privileges as determined by a district administrator. District staff or administration may confiscate any district-owned device from a student or employee due to a violation of this policy. That language is there. That's not something that I think we should use except in the most severe cases, since we view technology as a critical tool within the classroom. But at the same time, it does give the discretion to determine severity in accordance with other applicable building and district policies, and then address it in a way that's appropriate. Again, the goal here to me is to make sure that students have access to technology as much as possible, even in the cases where there are behavior concerns. And I think that this allows the flexibility for us to do that. It does list within the unacceptable uses the components that to me is from the IT side are the greatest threats to our network, and it lists those pretty specifically in terms of attempts to break into files, compromise other users' accounts, participate in attacks against the district's network, the prevention of technology, that sort of thing.
Do we have a current, I'm trying to look at like suspensions, etc. Do we have a category that we kind of use for electronic kind of bullying? I mean, that's probably falling under bullying or harassment, but do we have something? I'm saying technology violation. Is that what we're talking about?
I think technology violation would be a specific violation of one of the rules in here. My understanding, though, obviously I wouldn't be the very best person to answer this, but my understanding is that typically bullying, even if it occurs over electronic means, is classified as bullying within the system and not indicated as technology related.
So it's a possibility that some of these could be from technology. Because then that's why it's almost like trumping up a charge, right? Like, so do they get dinged for both? Or are they just getting dinged for the harassment and bullying? Or is it the violation? Because you know what I'm saying? Because like you could get suspended and lose use of the computer, versus now you would only lose. You would just get suspended. You wouldn't lose use of.
Yeah, and that's where again, the harassment and bullying section of this policy, which is really only 2 sentences, uses those 2 sentences to refer to the district's policies relating to bullying and harassment, specifically to avoid that. So we're not setting that up as a technology incident that has some extra specific, nowhere in that one does it mention taking away electronic resources. That said, certainly the reality is there are cases where a student who's engaged in cyberbullying, the action that administration decides to take may be to either remove or restrict access to technology. We've had very few, I'm trying to think if any students over this past year who have completely lost access to technology within the district. I think that number is 0. I believe we had a couple of students at the upper elementary grade levels who lost access for a period of time, but I don't think we've removed access from any students this year.
I just wonder about like, what is the administrative guidelines on something like that, knowing that you could fall in. I mean, there's lots of things, policies that we have, but I think that would be important, especially since we're putting in kind of a new policy, clear, documented policy, about what does that look like to the administrators. Is there training on that so that what I worry about is, equitable treatment about how we deal with this versus, maybe in, different secondary schools, they might deal with it differently versus elementary. And so I think it would be really important that there's some administrative guidelines about what this looks like Because the entire policy itself, like what this looks like from secondary to elementary.
And that might be an opportunity for the tech council to go through and look at it and say, here's what it's going to look like at the high school level, here's what it's gonna look like at the junior high level, here's what it looks like at the elementary level. You think about going one-to-one at the secondary level, now you could equate some of the restrictions to taking away a student's textbook, which we would not do, so how does that work?
Mhm.
And I think that's something that the tech council could look at and say, certainly that kind of behavior might warrant consequences, but what might those consequences look like, in particular in light of the curricular delivery system that we're using now and concerns that it might equate to taking a student's textbook away, which is not something that we would do.
I just think about, even
Sure.
from the Georgetown perspective of, we can put that on the books, but then we need to be really clear about
Yeah,
what that looks like.
yeah, and how it's
Because
implemented.
you already can see, even though there's similarities in the different school cell phone policies, they're different.
Yeah.
And so you can just tell just from the way that that's written, what that looks like from school to school about
Sure.
how this is implemented.
Well,
Could be huge consequences to our kids and how that impacts them academically. I
Mhm.
just don't want to kick us backwards on academic achievement by, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's good, we should have, but I worry about like, does that loss of access for a day for a
Yeah.
student that really needs that for a project?
Yeah,
And they don't have computer access at home.
yeah.
One thing that I think would be a real strength of coming up with administrative guidelines to address that directly, as you're saying, would be the fact that it's certainly still an issue, that the reaction of a lot of teachers and administrators when anything involves a computer is just to take away the computer.
Mhm.
And that's something that I work to steer people away from all the time, because I don't think you take away the tool in any other case, so why would you do that with technology? But having something documented that makes clear that that's not the approach, or, taking away technology really should be the last resort, taking
Mhm.
away access, again, as we rely more and more on it for curricular resources.
Yeah,
I-
like, it just could be tough.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. I just worry about, we're trying to put this in a place of pushing towards our district board goals, and then it end up, we can kick our, step on our own foot a little bit if we're not having some additional guidelines about how this rolls out, what this looks like. Because when we do the one-to-ones, who gets those first? I can't
It'll
remember.
be high schools.
High school kids, yeah.
So I think that'll be important to have that. When is this tech council people get together? Not till next school year?
Probably not till next school year.
Something that you would have students sign up to.
We have students sign off and parents at the elementary level on acceptance of acceptable use guidelines. Right now, we do that through Power School during that initial registration process. Once we have a more complete policy in place, we'll need to make sure that we're providing full access to that, both in written form and digital.
In multiple languages.
Yep.
The Chromebooks we have, I would assume they have at least one camera on it.
It does have a camera, yes.
So
Ooh.
that, so I don't know if it needs to go into this
No,
part of
good,
it,
yeah.
or
Good.
it could go into the cell phone and Chromebook policy.
Yep.
Yeah, at the school level, but I would like to, make sure that that's addressed in certain areas.
We'll make a note of that right now. That's a good point. That is not something, since we haven't been sending devices home, that's not something we've dealt with. There aren't a ton, and we really tried to steer away from having a specific one-to-one policy, in part to create redundancy, and in part there isn't a whole lot of difference. That's something where I think we'll want to address that specifically. And there are a number of components there. Just off the top of my head, a policy that I like that other districts have implemented and agree with is a policy that district staff will not operate or access cameras on devices at any time, on student devices at any time. And that stems from a number of issues that arose. One really prominent one in Pennsylvania, where the district had the idea that it was a good idea to use software that could activate those cameras to monitor what students were doing outside of
Oh my
school.
God.
Obviously, hugely problematic from a legal
Not a
perspective.
good
and
idea.
that's why.
Gee.
So I think my first step would be to write a policy saying specifically, we will not do that or anything like that. We actually don't proactively monitor student use of devices at all. We don't do screen monitoring from a district level. We don't do, collection of website histories unless it's specifically requested by a staff member as part of, looking into some issue. But with cameras, I think we'd want to include language saying that the district will not activate and monitor anything through student cameras, student device cameras at any time, or staff device cameras at any time. And then we have policy already in place. It's not part of this policy, but we have policy already in place prohibiting student recording of other students while in school. Some of the cell phone policies have it written right into the cell phone policy.
Right.
Some of the student handbooks have it written into a separate heading within the student handbook. And that actually, those are written, I want to double check all the cell phone policies, at least the ones that are written specific to recording are written with all electronic devices in mind. So that would include any one-to-one issued laptops or anything else that we issue to students. Basically prohibiting students from using the camera to record whether they're in a locker room or whether they're in a hallway without express permission from the person that they're recording. And then most of them just blanket prohibit use of cameras on smartphones, on district devices, whatever, within locker rooms, bathrooms, that sort of thing.
When would this policy cross over into law enforcement? That's the part I think maybe I'm not seeing that.
There it is in some part of this. Hold on a second.
I know there's like the Iowa law with the harassment and bullying piece of it, but
Yeah. So this is at the top of page 2. All communications sent over the ICCSD network or shared from any ICCSD provided account or device, including text and images, may be subject to disclosure to applicable law enforcement or other third parties
okay.
without prior consent of the sender or receiver as provided by law.
I guess my one thing that just to put out there is knowing that we're going forward with this, knowing that this is happening in the fall, right? Knowing that we still need to get some of this vetted through the communications committee. I'm worried about what this looks like when we go one-on-one. We don't quite have the policy in place. We don't quite have a training with administrators. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to rush it and put it through and then it's jacked up and but then I also don't want to be on the other end. I mean, they have some stuff now, right, because their student handbook and stuff, and they have to sign off on some of that stuff, but I would rather work a policy through and making sure that we're not going to kick the hornet's nest later and work it through than to push it through really quickly. But then it's like we got the cart before the horse a little bit with having the computers before we have the policy, so.
One thing that's important to note is we already have.
Yeah, I know we have that one. I'm just saying like we don't have one as detailed as this.
Oh yeah, I'm just talking about the computers themselves, and largely this codifies what is already current practice within the district. I don't see a lot that deviates from what this says. That's already occurring. So I don't know, other than, making sure that, you had mentioned administrators are aware of the contents. I don't know that they'll require much in the way of specific training because, again, this really codifies their current practice.
So there's already an AUP out there, and they've been trained on that.
Yeah, there's
And-
already
yeah.
there's already
Is that a
basic
policy
AUP.
per school or is it policy for the district?
It's a district.
It's a district level.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
But what this is doing, and I think maybe from an evolutionary standpoint, to your point, we're not done with it. And maybe one of the things that we can do is make notations in here about those issues that are going to go. This has been referred to Tech Council for revision and update. This has been, so you can see in here where those items are going. And maybe even from that standpoint, Adam, is if you want to make some notations in here
And that's
about
what I'm-
when we could expect to see it back, such as Tech Council meets in September, this could be back in front of P&G in October.
So a timeline.
Right, so we could see in here, and I think he could even go through there and highlight it
Yeah.
in the section. So if 2A is going to be reviewed by Tech Council and it's going to come back to us, we can anticipate that'll be back in front of P&G in October, and then we could make sure that it is top of the agenda and it gets to the board by the second meeting in October. So we're not that far into the school year before we go through and address those.
I think what will be really helpful is, because it's kind of out there floating that we don't have any policy here. I think it'll be really important in this document, as a second document, however, to identify what we currently have as
Sure.
our actual policy now versus what's new in addition or what's a clarification.
Yeah.
So that it's clear to the public, like, we do have a policy.
Yeah.
We are going one-to-one. We have a policy. This is the next level of policy of us getting into more detail. I think, because if not, then it comes across sometimes when it's discussed that we don't have any policy at all.
Yeah,
We
we
just
do.
willy-nilly out here,
That'd be pretty straightforward for us on the
Yeah.
board agenda where we address this, to have in place items flagged so that you can see that, and then replacement items flagged, so you can see that.
Yeah.
And then also just having a second document if people just want to
Yeah.
review it without
Yeah.
the extra specialization of the blue document. But, I just think that that can be clear
Sure.
for folks, because people will, the way that it's been discussed is as if we do not have a
Sure.
policy at all.
Right.
And that's not
We
true.
just don't have a
Yeah,
unified
yeah,
or comprehensive.
Yeah, so I think
policy.
that could be
Mhm.
very, very helpful. And it'd be really great if our administrators could come together a little bit more on their cell phone policy.
Mhm.
What are the 7 things that are exactly
Oh.
the same?
Elementary, junior high? high
Yeah,
school.
what is it? And then like what may be unique to each school, because I understand there's unique needs. So, specifically Northwest is this red, green thing, whatever, So I just think that that can be helpful.
Right.
These are overall policies, and then these are unique to each school about the language that they use, the
Do you-
little hawk phone policy, whatever.
Do you get the feeling that the administrators at each building were working on, what works in their building, and then there might be gains to be had to place?
Yeah, and I just think it could be helpful. We know we have kids that are mobile.
Right.
Yeah.
We know what our mobile.
Well, we
grades
used to have
are.
3 different English curricula in the district. We
Yeah.
have 1 now,
Yeah.
and so I think that there's
There's
rationale
some
behind
need
that.
to, I think there's always a need to have some flexibility, but there's a need to also have some standardization about
Okay.
some basic
I
stuff.
think more standardization and less
Yes,
idiosyncrasy
what we have
personally.
learned is that discretion includes bias, and then bias causes inequity.
Do you have enough to go on in terms of making some edits
I
on here?
believe so. I
Okay.
have a note to, I was gonna just strike those two, the 2A and the unacceptable use D. And then I have a note to draft a device camera policy,
Mhm.
hopefully more, better name than that. To develop a protocol for application of by sanctions, I guess, by the buildings, and that would be reviewed by Tech Council. And then also a note to begin a process towards unifying the cell phone policies between the buildings. Those were the things I got. And I have enough to get that started.
One other question, just because I see Northwest specifically called out times, but
Yep.
I'm curious if that, when you go to the administrators and talk about that time that they're still on campus, maybe participating in an extracurricular activity, falls outside of that time that's listed in there, so
Mhm.
either it needs to be
Mhm.
updated or removed, that part, I guess.
Some of them have bathroom policies, some don't.
Yeah, and some of those, like I said, are included actually in a separate, this was
Oh,
the cell
okay.
phone, some of them have
Gotcha.
a specific policy for recording.
Right.
But again, that's something that if we just had that standardized, and to your point, a student who moves from one building to the other, we can't
Mhm.
reasonably expect them to learn a whole new set of policies,
Right.
middle of the year.
One district, they moved 5 miles, and now it's a whole new set of rules. That's very difficult for
Yeah.
kids.
And then the odds that they'll get in trouble because they
Yeah.
violated some policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One last little thought. Do we have signage in our school restrooms, like cell phone with a line through it type thing? Or
We have it in at least some of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
just
don't know
because I've seen it
uniformly if it's in all of
anecdotally, But I
them.
don't think it's uniform.
Because we do have, guests from other schools that come here for events and.
So again, from a uniformity standpoint, that would be something to look at for all restrooms, all locker rooms.
Locker rooms.
So it's just a uniform signage that's in every
Yeah.
public restroom.
On our campus,
Yeah, this is a no-no.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Moving on? Got enough, Adam?
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Moving on, superintendent directions. By the way, good discussion on that. Thank you. Superintendent directions 2C, 2D, 2E. This is just a carryover from what we talked about back in March.
Mhm.
We took out the word percent, put in the percent signs,
Mhm.
struck 7, 8, 9, 10, and some other language that was, just to go back to what we talked about back in March, that was tied to the diversity policy, which does not exist any longer.
Correct.
About the capacity utilization goals and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Any suggestions, or are we good to take this to the board? The whole reason for it being here was just to come back from what we talked about in March.
Make sure we had all the corrections in there.
It looked totally reflective of our conversation in March.
The only thing I would add
Yep.
here, and we just have a bad habit of doing this, is we don't do a good job. Anytime you write a paper or something, you have to say what the heck it is before you use the acronym. So if we're going to use it throughout the
Oh, for
document.
Pepple and City.
Yeah, we need to be able to at least
We can do that.
initially include that.
Sure. I think that's a pretty easy one. I think they both appear in number 4
Yeah.
to start with, so we can spell them out in number 4, and then they'll carry through for the rest.
Well, and especially considering that in 3D4, we're going from, sorry, what you're saying, going from silo to save, we're going from one acronym to another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, if you're reading it, you're like, what the heck is a PPL? Like, you don't know how to say PAPL. Nobody's
Sure.
prepped you on how to even pronounce the acronym.
I like it.
We can make that change. That's pretty straightforward.
Or at least the first instance that's used,
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is in number 4 for
I think it
both of
is.
those.
Four is the first
We won't
one.
correct silo since that's being stricken. We'll just
Thank
leave
you.
that.
Sure.
You know what, they're used in 3C,
And this one?
5 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'll just, or even
Yeah, I
4,
just
I'll
think
catch the first ones,
Even if
yeah.
it's just the
Four-
first one, you can
three-
at least refer back, like,
Yeah.
I think I saw what that was spelled out.
Yep.
But if
3C.
you ever want to go back and reference what that is online, you will almost need the full, because you could type in
Especially
save, and it's like, save what?
Which ones?
Trees, what,
3C,
you know.
4.
Yes, 3C, 4, 5, 6, and then
So
it's
5 and 6.
3D, 4.
Yeah, I just think the first one is fine, so that people can
Yeah.
have something to reference
Okay,
back. I don't
so-
think we need
so
to
just-
change
Right,
the
so-
entire
So let's do
document.
3C4.
Yeah, 3C4, and I didn't see any other, I just went through it, I did
So
not
just
see
put-
any other acronyms other than those two.
Just put physical plant equipment levy, Pepple, and
Yep. Securing an advanced vision for education, save.
Jesus,
All right,
alphabet soup.
thank you for pointing that out, we will take care of that.
No problem, been talking about acronyms for about 2 years.
Yep.
Yes, you have.
Can I
I
ask
try
a
never to
question?
use them when I'm talking.
Are we gonna bring it back here, or is it, do
No,
you just want me
I
to
think
post
it's
changes
ready
and
to
goes to
go.
board?
Just
Do we
take
want
it.
it on the
Yes,
June
sure.
27th, or
Yeah. I
June
think that's
13th?
fine.
I
That's
think-
27th. Or do you want it on the 13th? We can do either one.
Let's do 13,
All right?
just because
All right.
there's some other things that we're going to be coming back to and bringing back to the board, and
All right. Sounds good.
I'll add to that agenda? Thank you.
if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Participation by the public at board meetings, levels 2A, 2B, 2C.
One change I would like to see.
Yep.
It's in the 2A,
Mhm.
and it's about the 4 minutes.
Mhm.
I think that we need to make an exception or write it in there that when people come up to the mic with translators,
Mhm.
that the time stops when the translator talks, because I don't think the person's actually getting their full 4 minutes then if they choose to take it.
Mm.
I would say that the timer thing might be a little bit crazy, but if you gave an extension of a minute for the additional translation, that might be helpful.
I don't know that I can pause the timer.
Oh,
Like I can stop it.
I mean, you're gonna end up playing it like a stopwatch over in the corner, start, stop.
But I don't know if I have that option. I think it's either start or stop. I don't think it's, I can check.
Because I just find it that
That's
we're
true.
rushing those people.
Or do we just say that,
We give them additional time, a couple.
additional time may be required for translation, for speakers requiring translators? Additional time may be granted.
They wouldn't be translators, they would be
Interpreters.
Interpreters, yes,
Translation is
So,
about
addition-
documents.
yes.
Additional time allotted for
Additional time may be allotted for
interpreters.
For-
For public
yeah.
speakers, utilizing
requiring
and
requiring
Utilize
interpreter
interpreters.
services. Requiring the services of interpreter, yes.
Got that?
Or for instance, that goes to our ASL
Right, sure.
stakeholder as well. I like that.
All right.
Okay. And this is about the third time that this particular policy has been circled around since 2013, so I don't think I didn't feel there's a whole lot to change. I think our comment policy works very well right now, certainly with the IASB guidance that we've received. And if you go back to, I think it's June 9th, 2015, yes. We have, if you go back in board docs to June 9th, 2015, we have all the guidance that we received from IASB regarding community comment. There's a whole spreadsheet of all of the other UEN districts and what they do. We did a rather in-depth study. This was with Patty and Jeff, were still here on P&G. We were then called P&E at the time. But we did an in-depth study of what other UEN districts do, and we found that we actually have one of the more liberal policies. Some school districts have 15 minutes of community comment before their meeting starts. The meeting starts at 6, and that's it. And it was, the very, very restrictive policies. So this has certainly been helping us to, I think it's been, personally, I think it's been working well, but I'm sure there's people that have other differences of opinion. So make that change in that language, suggested change. Okay, I like it. That's really good.
Also put that on the 13th.
Cool.
All right.
Anything else before we move on? 500 series policies. As you remember, we brought this to the board in April 11th meeting, and there were some comments or suggestions. First off, Diane pointed out that the number of
Right.
credit hours should be changed from 309 to 310.
Right.
I would suggest that get done.
Yep, that's in here.
Okay, and then I just wanted that one printed off in front of me. And then one of our colleagues watched the video of the meeting the other night in preparation for this committee meeting, but brought up specifically 503.4 with the words illegal, immoral, unhealthy, and I suggested that we change it to illegal or in violation of school rules.
Yeah, I guess, just one thought on that, so I kind of, I don't know, research is really the right word, but thinking more along the lines of, since it's talking about extracurricular activities, the immoral part of it could be, and it's not illegal, and it's not necessarily against school rules, but perhaps you were cheating, or you were using performance-enhancing drugs, and those are immoral things to do, or if you intentionally hurt another athlete, things of that, or your own team. Again, not necessarily illegal, but
Right.
could be considered immoral
Mm-hmm.
or unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
That's still a tricky word, though.
It is, I
Mhm.
mean,
It's just really subjective, you know.
Yeah.
If it's illegal or in violation of school rules, that's very clear cut.
Yeah, don't do that.
Say school
Cheating
policy
would
or-
cover that.
School policies,
Yeah.
school policies, guidelines, and
Bullying,
procedures.
harassment.
I know I said school rules, and then you said it, and now I corrected you on it, so
Sorry.
I was
I'd
correcting
be
myself.
fine with it.
And it's just tricky, especially with the unhealthy, because what's unhealthy,
Yep, I understand
y'all
that.
over here might not be unhealthy.
Yeah, I would definitely support the illegal or in violation of school policies, guidelines, or procedures.
There were also, looking at the video from April 11th, there were a couple comments made about corporal punishment and records access. Personally, I did request that that individual email me directly a list of concerns they might have regarding the 500 level policies. Despite that request, I have not received that to this date. So I was happy with the 500s as they were in accordance with Iowa code with the updates that we received from Joe. Unless somebody wants to dig into corporal punishment or records access, I would say you leave them as is.
It was something. So on here it says, upon request, the student's parents are given an explanation for the reason for physical force.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like, as a district, we should just let parents know if that was, you know, if that happened. Because the thing is, a kid's gonna go home and say this, and if you didn't tell me that this happened and my child come and tell me, you're gonna have a problem with me.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have words. It's not gonna be good. So I think that just for a professional standpoint and a parent and family engagement standpoint, we should make sure that we are sending the note home. And, I mean, so many of these teachers, they text their parents that, you know, you
Mhm.
can easily just send an email, say this happened, just wanted you to be aware of it. We had to physically pull Johnny off Billy because Johnny was, you know, giving them 1-2 hit or quitters. You know what I'm saying? Just like, let's just be clear about that. Instead of waiting for a parent to request that you tell them what happened.
Just modify that sentence to the student's parents shall be given an explanation of the reasons for physical force.
Yeah, it just would,
Shall be notified or shall be, how do you want it?
All I did was I just struck upon request and then
Okay.
inserted the student's
Okay.
parents and then shall be instead of are.
Yeah, I like that. But time should be, the time frame should be, I think, put on there.
as soon as possible. Which, you know,
I'd almost say within 24 hours, I think that, I mean,
I don't have a problem with that.
that's fine. I mean, you know,
isn't that
that
in
day or
accordance,
whatever.
isn't that in accordance with the,
It shouldn't be like next week. Oh yeah, I forgot. You know, it should. You know,
that's why I think
we're
within,
talking.
I think within
Just
24
like,
hours
Let
is,
people know. It doesn't have to be, you know, so the parents at least are aware that that happened.
so students' parents or guardian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Shall be given an explanation of the reason for physical force within 24 hours. Does that sound,
That's fine.
okay? Great. Any suggestions or Paul? Okay. And then, there was something that our colleague brought up about records access, but again, I requested that we have a more detailed list sent to us and it's not been received, so. I agree with the corporal, or the physical force one. Anything else with the 500 series policy, since we've decided the second or third time we'll be taking it back to the board?
Oh, it's so-
Yeah.
Just give me 2 seconds. I forgot.
You got it.
I wrote a note, but then I forgot to write where I saw it. It was something to do with. It was in the corporal, so I just need to look for it. It was something about a determination of someone being actually guilty.
Hmm.
And I just can't find where that was. can't use the documents on these. Oh, man. I should have wrote that down, forgot. But it was somewhere in here that was saying that the board, maybe it's under,
You can control F and type in guilty and it'll bring it up.
really?
Yeah.
Control F, which one? Like the F outline.
Yeah.
You are good.
It's 503.2.
Yeah, I was just gonna say page 7.
Okay, so it's like an addition. So I was looking at this for our special education students, a determination shall be made of whether the student's actually guilty of. I just get worried about stuff like, because it's really, I don't know. Maybe I'm not reading it correctly or something, but.
I'm sorry, can you help me find where we're talking?
503.2.
503.2, okay.
Go
And it's
to,
like the second to the last paragraph on the second sentence.
so right underneath the 5.
Yep,
So,
And this-
I got it. Okay, it's actually guilty of the misconduct, yeah.
I think part of that is because of the manifestation hearings that are required. So that if indeed the behavior, whether guilty or not, is a manifestation of the special educational needs of the student, then that requires additional procedures.
Okay.
So I think that's what they were trying to put in here and
Can you
codify.
say a determination should be made whether action is warranted? Or know whether next steps are warranted? Because, I mean, the negative language of student, I see, is that what you're saying, the student guilty?
Yeah, it's just like, you know, is it, I understand the determination, we're trying to say, is this a part of this child's, you know, ability or
Right.
disability here versus this is something that they actually did despite all that.
Because the next sentence goes on to say, a staffing team should determine whether the student's behavior is caused by the student's disability and whether the conduct is
Right.
a result of inappropriate placement. Discussions and conclusions of it, so,
I'm wondering if that sentence isn't redundant, to be honest with you.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I just.
If
we
you
can
read,
strike
if you read
it.
the first and the third sentence, I don't think you need the second sentence in there.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. Just seems.
I'd recommend just striking it.
Makes it cleaner, makes it easier.
All right.
Did my homework. I wasn't ready today.
Bam. Nice work. Good call.
Oh, yeah, and just one more. In the corporal punishment one, it says, letting people, oops, I'll go that one more.
It's 503.5.
Yeah, prior to the end of the term. I was just trying to get a little bit cleaner about the, it's not corporal punishment, this is about, when kids are having failing grades. I just gotta find it. I think it's in the progress report or something.
Okay.
But they were supposed to let parents know when their kids are failing or something.
Right. Students who are doing poorly and their parents are notified prior to the end of the term in order to have an opportunity to improve their grade, that type of thing.
So just, I mean, this is more of a question, like, how soon is that? Because is that midterm? Is that,
2 days
because
before.
you know, we got a trimester, so they go like popcorn. And then you get to the end and you're like, oh yeah, you failing. Like, how do you make that all up and then go into the next trimester? And then that's how we get all these kids in summer school, because so I just don't know what that is. And so I don't know if that's right away the parents are being made aware. I mean, that happens. You get an F on something that you didn't turn it in, and then, you know, in a day or two you turn it in. But like if a kid is like really struggling, like how soon?
At the elementary level, we would do our universal screeners and
Right.
then notify parents within a couple of weeks. Typically, that's landing around conference time for us, and so that also pairs with that early literacy legislation requirement. So I feel like we're meeting that. Now, particularly around science and social studies, maybe not as much as the reading and math, but
Mm-hmm.
can't answer that piece as far as secondary.
I just wonder if, and some parents should, if I would want you to have sent me an email or something prior to, hey, I'm so glad you're here. Did you know your kid was failing? Like,
That's
Yeah.
not-
I'm gonna be livid.
Yeah.
I'm like, why didn't you tell me this on Wednesday?
Yeah.
Right.
They was filling on Wednesday before I came here on Thursday. So,
Report card should never be up.
right, because it's like getting an evaluation, like, you know, what's your evaluation? You've been failing all year. So, is there a way that we can talk about how we can notify parents?
Well, one thing we could do, because it says notified prior to the end of the term in order to have an opportunity to improve their grades. So obviously,
Right.
there must be adequate time between notification and end of the semester try for that student to undertake whatever remedial work needs to be done in order to bring that grade up. And I would presume that one of the reasons that that is, doesn't have a time frame in it is because the marking periods are different. And because I would think from an age standpoint and a content standpoint, some students may need to be notified earlier, others might be able to be notified later, and I would presume that that's probably why there's that much ambiguity in there. It
I
might-
just really think that could, I mean, I don't know how we clean that up a little bit. Do we do that by age group or whatever, but.
Yeah,
Just, I think you should not be like, aha, your child's been failing at conference.
Well, on the secondary level with our school, they
Yeah.
get emails every Monday.
Mhm.
That is,
Well,
right?
and one of my other concerns is and I wonder if this isn't perhaps one of the rationale that this is less systematic than some of the other things that we put in place, is if you set the date too early and the child continues to do poorly after that, this doesn't necessarily say that I'm required as a teacher to provide you consistent notification thereafter. So if we were to put in there, you know, I gotta notify Brian 3 weeks before the end of the trimester if a student's not doing bad. What if he's doing all right 3 weeks before but not good 2 weeks before? So I think one of the things, if you go to the buildings, one of the expectations that the principals have is if a student's grades begin to drop, that parents are then notified, and it's really from day one to day end of the course, day one to day end of the try, that you as a teacher may actually be required to report that more often than once. Because if there's a significant change in a student's grades at any point over the period, that there's a requirement that you reach out to parents and let them know. I think that, and
So
again,
less
I'm
prescriptive.
well, I'm extrapolating a little bit, just having sat through building meetings when principals have gone over their expectations for notifying parents. That tends to be the standard of care, which is if you see a change, you need to notify the parents. And it's not here, 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 but at any point that happens. So,
Tricky.
yeah.
And
It might be good to have some follow-up with our administrators in terms of better understanding what expectation they are placing on staff, and then how they're holding staff accountable for that.
right.
I think that might be the more germane piece for us, is how do you ensure that your staff are actually getting that message out to parents?
To all, I think my thing is about like, don't do this for this kid and not for this
Right.
one over here.
Right.
You know, because that's what I worry about. You know,
Yeah.
then we have some kids that probably could, if a parent knew, because I know some parents, like, some teachers just don't want to deal with it. That doesn't matter. Like, if this
Yeah.
is a parent that you know is going to be like, come on, Johnny, get on it, you know, it may not be in the way that you want them to say it, but if they're going
Yeah.
to, you know, they've been with that parent their whole life, you know. I don't know, I just was worried about that a little bit. And then the one last thing, I'm going to leave it alone, is, and I don't know where this is, it seems like it would be in the 500s, but maybe it's not, is talking about, not records actually. If a kid is suspended and they come back to school, and I'm not sure if this fits exactly in here or not, but my question and concern is, if you lose this much school, we don't have anything to help a kid get back and where they were. So maybe that's an administrative thing, or maybe that's a policy thing, but I'm concerned about kid get suspended, whether they were higher achieving or not. A higher achieving kid, they may be able to, with talking to friends, get caught back up. but we have an expectation. We give them homework. We send them math home. Have you ever done math homework? If you send a kid 3 days worth of math homework, you basically say, go teach yourself. Like, how? Now, and I've been trying to help lots of kids for many years. I'm like, I don't even know what this is. We didn't do this when I was in that grade. This is new stuff. I don't know what these boxes, these are magical boxes. I don't know how to do this math. But I worry about, like, what is our responsibility as a district to provide space and opportunity for those kids, and I don't know which policy this will fit in, maybe it's not any of these, to help a kid to get caught back up.
I think that's, is that more admin guidelines?
Yeah, it is. Part of it's our, the way our discipline process has significantly evolved over time from you're an annoyance, so out you go, to the more that we can ensure that you stay on track. If you have to be removed from the classroom, the better we're able to integrate you back into the classroom.
Mhm.
So that kind of parallels our, we're not going to expel kids process.
You know, like,
Yeah.
If we could find that as, or any place that might be referenced, and bring that as a, I mean, because
Yeah,
technically we're off
I don't think you're going to find it.
agenda, because it's not,
Yeah.
I don't see it in the 500s.
no, I just didn't know. I was thinking about the expulsion and the
Yeah.
student conduct.
Right.
I just didn't know where
No,
that
and-
fits in
No,
this
and you
world.
said it, and I immediately jumped to expulsion, like, well, that's not it. So it's somewhere, but I don't think it's in the 500s.
It's just, it would be interesting to have that discussion, know that information.
Right.
Because I worry about that, because I think sometimes, just kind of going into our conduct stuff,
Mhm.
that
Well, no, and-
if I'm so far behind, then you might
Right.
see my acting out increases,
Right.
because I'm like, I can't get caught up.
And if we exacerbate that by helping you fall further behind, we're just,
Right.
we ought to expect just increased
Yeah, but
elevated
then we're
behavior.
pushing discipline,
Right.
which could turn into,
I don't think you're going to find it codified in policy.
Okay.
I don't think that's.
I was just going to say
Yeah,
that
I
4
don't-
years on this committee, and I've never seen that.
Yeah, I don't think it's.
So,
Yeah.
I think
and
it's an
know we've been through
expectation.
every policy.
Yeah, I think it's an expectation that we
Twice,
have, but
some-
I don't.
sometimes 3
I don't
times.
think you're going to find that as policy
and
anymore.
then the thing is, parents don't know, if it is something that's out there, only some people know about it,
Yeah.
which, that's not fair, right? But like, I worry about that. Like, I seriously have seen from our highest achieving student to our student that was giving up anyways. Not giving up, but just felt so far behind in general because maybe they came into the district and they were a little behind or whatever, that you just feel hopeless. And I hate seeing our kids feel hopeless when they're just like, I'm trying to take advanced, chem, and I got in trouble because I did something stupid, and now I have no way to get caught up. My friends are trying to teach this to me, and I'm trying to talk to the teacher. I'm just so far behind, and they give up or they drop out after that
Right.
semester because they can't make it up. So, I mean, maybe it's not in here, but I just worried about, like,
Yeah.
where does it say in our policies that we're going to support our students in that way as well? So, because I think that goes back to climate and conduct and, et cetera. Could prevent some corporal punishment.
I think that's
It feels interconnected.
Let me see what I can do about finding out whether or not we've got anything formally codified. So I think
Okay.
Kate would know that. So I'll get a request out to her and see what she can.
Okay, but then you have to apply Appendix 1, which is about board policy creation. Is it a means?
Yeah.
Is it an end?
Well, let me see.
Where should it?
Let me see if we've got anything first,
Mhm.
and then I can bring that back to you.
Well, we're a policy-making board. That's what we're supposed to be up here doing. So I'm putting it out there.
Yep. Let me see what I can find out. I'll get that back to you.
All right. I'm done. I don't have anything else. My sheet is clear.
So, next Policy and Governance Committee meeting, I'd like to throw out that we should bring Appendix 8 back. We had Appendix 8 on the board agenda, and that whole discussion started all the way back in like November of last year. And I'd like to bring that back around later this summer. Although technically I'll be out of town for the first week of August, so that won't work, but maybe first meeting in September. It was nothing pressing, it just had to do with the makeup of the Education Committee.
At the risk of raising everyone's ire, just a reminder that August has 5 Tuesdays in it.
Well,
So we have meetings scheduled for the 1st and the 15th, but not for the 22nd or the 29th.
22, we could do,
Wait. he was saying that he was saying plan a meeting.
Like I said,
I'm just gonna say September,
okay.
first Tuesday of September,
I just wanted to make sure that I
because I think
put that out
I think
there.
4th of July is, we typically don't do this
No,
committee meeting in July.
Recommend against that.
And then,
Yeah, I'm not gonna come.
and I'm out of town beginning of August, and we usually don't have one in August. But
That's
we could
fine.
tidy up Appendix A.
We'd be
in
on the
September.
5th then, so I think that'd be,
September 5th?
Yep.
It's right after Labor Day.
yep.
And then there's been a request from the board table to look at conflict of interest policy and fraternization,
We could add those to the
September 5th.
5th. Mm-hmm.
And can we bring the potential policy-making idea back? to that
Yes.
meeting?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I would hope to have
At
any
least something.
feedback. And actually what I'll do is, as soon as I can get some feedback from people on the team, I'll just push that out to you so you have that, then we can take a look at it and say
Okay, some
what
framework.
agenda item would be appropriate for
Okay.
September based on what we get back.
So tentatively, we could call it supportive students.
It's a staff expectation issue more than
Yeah.
anything else, I think.
About what do we do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's about the transitioning back into, after a discipline action.
Support while out, transitioning while
Yeah.
back.
Post-disciplinary supportive students.
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah.
I was just saying, I'm thinking about transition. What is the
Let's not use
transitional
transition.
support for students? What is the support for students as they transition back from a disciplinary action?
Right.
Out of school disciplinary action.
Yeah.
Because if they're in school, they're still
Right, they're
getting,
getting
Re-
that support.
Yeah.
because it's huge. You're home for 3 days?
Repatriation supportive students.
Oh, Lord.
Something
We'll
like
come
that.
up with some
We'll call it
Yeah, we'll come up with some
we'll call it
language that's
sup-
not
we'll call
having
it
people pull
support
out the
of-
dictionary about like, what does that even mean?
Supportive students just for now.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so
And
conflict of
like I said,
interest.
I'll get out whatever I can pull from the team, I'll get that out to you via email so that you can take a look at it.
Cool.
And that might drive the content of the agenda item.
And Appendix 8, I don't anticipate being a long discussion, but
All right. Very good.
that's all I have. Does anybody else?
No, plus that policy could drive at our district goals.
Mm-hmm.
Not the one you just said, appendix A.
Oh,
I was
I'm like,
talking about
how
a
so?
potential discussion about
Yes. Oh, the student
for
support, yes, absolutely.
students transitioning.
I was trying to figure out how Appendix 8 in the Education Committee,
Sorry.
well, actually, it does drive at our student goals, right? It's the Education Committee.
Yes.
All right, anything else?
No, sir.
Motion to adjourn?
Sure. Second.
We're fancy.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Good discussion tonight.